What's up, guys? John Manson, See Red here, back with your weekly update in vlog format. Going to kind of do a breakdown of the Liberty football roster and depth chart. 2025 season's rapidly approaching. Spring transfer portal is closed. Obviously, that means no new entries into the portal. Teams will obviously still add players into their onto their roster in the coming days and weeks. Liberty will be no exception to that, looking to get some new faces again to offset some of the losses and needs that this team has coming out of spring practice. Going to kind of go quickly through each position. There's 10 different position groups. Don't want to make this video an hour long. So we're going to kind of highlight the top storyline going into the summer and training camp. And then, maybe like the biggest question mark or need from that position group for Liberty to have a successful season. Obviously won't mention every player by name or go into detail. That's just not the format. That's not what this format is intended for. Obviously, we have the blog form where we've gone through and already released our way too early depth chart and are going position by position kind of preview or recap or overall review of where the Flames stand at each position going into the summer. Those are kind of like a high level overviews, and we'll obviously get into it a little bit more detailed as training camp and things get underway. So we're going to go ahead and go through it. Like I said, it's going to be quickly because, again, I don't want this to be, it's probably still going to be 15-20 minute video. Don't want it to be 45 minutes or an hour. So we'll start just right at the top. Quarterback. Obviously, the Flames will have to replace two-time starter Caden Salter. We'll have time as we get further away and Salter's career at Liberty is more in the rear view to kind of recap what his legacy should be, what it is for the Flames. But you can't overlook what he did in 2023, leading the team to a 13-0 regular season, Fiesta Bowl appearance, and Conference USA championship before losing to Oregon there in the Fiesta Bowl. But Liberty's looking for a new leader at that position. Coming out of spring, obviously, the top returners, Ryan Berger, Jaden Bradford, were injured, did not practice in the spring. And Liberty's got several new faces in that room. Ethan Vasco, Michael Merdinger, Ethan Hauk, true freshman. Those are the three guys that were getting most of the reps in the spring. Vasco, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, and he was previously at Kansas. He's a guy that's got the most playing time and experience at the FBS level at this position. There's no starter that's been named. I would expect Vasco is the most likely front runner going into the summer, but again, that's for me, not inside the quarterback meeting rooms and coaches meetings and things like that. So I think Vasco is probably the favorite going into training camp. We likely won't have a starter named until the last week or two of the preseason. Then you've also got Berger, who was a backup last year, kind of dealt with some injuries the last couple of years. And then Merdinger, the North Carolina transfer, is a young guy. He redshirted last year, but I think he's a guy that's got a lot of potential and very smart, and he can probably push Vasco in the summer. So we'll see how that goes. It's obviously going to be a big storyline in the offseason, and we'll cover that more in depth throughout the year. Looking at running back, I think the biggest thing to take away here is Juju Gray, who kind of was injured a lot last year. The former NC State transfer came in as a receiver, kind of a slot receiver, but now he's been moved full-time to running back. He's going to kind of be that pitch back, the back that's used out of the backfield, for catching screen passes, running some routes, also taking the option pitch and going out on the perimeter and trying to make some plays. So looking forward to see how Juju, how he kind of takes that next step now that he is, fully healthy, and hopefully he'll remain his health But I think that's going to be the biggest change and the biggest difference we see in this Liberty offense is featuring him a lot in the run game, option game as well too. Kind of your between the tackle back, I think, Vaughn Blue is a name that's going to be mentioned here. He can play either the A or the B back. He'll obviously get a lot of touches in this offense this season. Whether that's as the pitch back or as the guy between the tackles, he can kind of do both. He can also go out and catch passes out of the backfield too. Caden Williams is another name. He was a true freshman last year, played some in the bowl game with those opt-outs there. But expect to hear his name a lot as a redshirt freshman this season. Expect to hear his name a lot throughout the offseason and going into next year. And, quarterback and running back are huge question marks for the Flames going into the season. Not that they can't get it done. They don't have the guys to get it done. I think they do. But they're new names, and that's something we haven't seen under Chadwell in his first 2 years here is there's lots of new names here. So those are kind of the main names to look at running back. Receiver was obviously a little bit of a letdown last year. Trying to find a replacement for CJ Daniels didn't quite happen. But I think Liberty this year, they went out and addressed that, brought in Casey Kane, Jamari Pearson. Both of those guys have big play potential, can go out and hopefully catch the deep pass, be a threat down the field. Then you throw in, a guy like a Tyson Mobley, Elijah Canyon, Reese Smith, Dante Lee. Those are kind of the guys, the names that you're going to be watching out. Liberty needs somebody to step up to be that go-to guy, and also a guy that's a deep threat, whether it's the same person or there's multiple guys that can step into that role. That's what Liberty needs for this offense to kind of take that next step. Looking at tight ends, Jacob Jenkins, kind of the leader of that room, returning there, at least on the field. Austin Henderson will also obviously be a big part of the tight end group as well too. A veteran who's been in the system for a long time, been at Liberty for a long time, a great representative of this university and this football program. So those are kind of the known commodities at tight end. Probably the most known position group out of who's coming back as far as returners and recognizing the names and knowing what they're going to be able to produce on the field on Saturdays is that tight end. Got more question marks some of the other position groups. Offensive line. Aaron Fenimore is the leader of that group, really one of the leaders of the team as he steps into his third year in the system, second year as a starter, starting center. Also Jack Tucker, Harrison Hayes also returning starters from last year. Those are guys you can count on. They're dependable. DJ Guess, another guy who transferred in from Carolina a year ago, was part of the 2 deep last year. And, look for him to kind of step into a starting role this year. Or, that's kind of the hope to kind of lock down one of those guard positions. But he'll certainly be a prominent figure, a key figure in the offensive line. You also got a few, transfers that have come in. Christian Williams, the Florida transfer, Trey Badowski, UAB transfer. Those are kind of the first couple that kind of step out. Earl Anthony, Wingate transfer. Those are some guys that Liberty's going to count on, have to count on going into this season to kind of, build some depth and hopefully at least one of those names, if not a couple, can slide into the starting lineup. We also might see Liberty, be active. There's already been offers that have gone out. They've gotten a couple guys on campus for visits, but it seems like other P4s are coming in and scooping up some of these guys Liberty's going after in the transfer portal at offensive line. So, I think that's a position Liberty's will still look to add if they can get somebody that they think will fit in here. So that's something that's still a little bit of a work in progress. But I think that the bulk of the pieces are there. It just, meshing them all together. Coach Durkin meshing them all together. He's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, certainly at the G5 level. And that's an important group. Transitioning over to the defense, obviously lots of question marks on the offensive side of the ball. Now kind of transfer to the defense. And one thing I meant to say at the beginning, kind of lost in my train of thought, was if you look at the numbers, like how many people Liberty lost in the transfer portal, whether that's in December and or the spring. It's actually less than Liberty's lost the last 2 years. So Liberty's actually returning more production from the from last season than they did the prior 2 seasons. But obviously some big names, some big holes to lose, and more that has been lost to graduation. You look at like a Quentin Cooley, a Billy Lucas really affects the running back room. A Jerome Jolly at linebacker, a couple other linebackers that are gone there as well too, and you kind of seen that throughout. But Liberty, numbers wise, Liberty has lost less in the portal this year than they did the previous 2. So just something to consider. All right, transitioning to the defense, defensive line. A lot of attention will be paid to this in training camp in the summer. Obviously, quarterback will be a position that we'll be watching. Running back as well too. You got some new pieces there, but defensive line, losing 3 guys in your 2 deep in the matter of a week in the spring transfer portal is obviously going to hurt your depth. It's going to affect your depth. So we'll have to see how this group looks. Obviously, CJ Bazile returns at Joker. You can pencil him in there as a starter. Bryce Dixon at defensive tackle. You can go ahead and pencil him in. Outside of that, there's a lot of unknowns and question marks. So we'll have to see. Hearing a lot of good things about Brenton Williams at Joker behind Bazile. I think the staff feels really good about those 2 guys. And then you also got a Bryson Jennings for depth purposes there too. But I think the staff feels really good about Bazile and Williams at your Joker spot. Bryce Dixon, obviously a good piece on the interior of the line. He's been at Liberty. This is his 3rd year, I believe now, and came in as a true freshman and played under Coach Freeze and continues to play there. The rest of the defensive line, it's going to be a lot of new faces, guys that came in the December window, also some guys that were added here in the spring window. DJ Jackson from NC State, Marcus Clark, App State, Joe Strickland, Purdue, Aaron Hester, Florida State. Those are some of the names that you're looking at that will likely fill into this 2 deep on the defensive line at a defensive end and a defensive tackle spot, nose guard spot. Also, Mike Jarvis and Eli Hall are some other names to watch here as well. Guys that transferred into Liberty last year and kind of were depth pieces, maybe part of the 2 deep a little bit. They're gonna have to step up into more prominent roles and maybe even be a starter for the Flames on the defensive line. So that's obviously a position that Liberty, if they could even add more through the portal, I think they'd be open to. They have to try to plug some of those holes with some pieces here in the spring portal window. But obviously a position that's a question mark going into next season. Linebacker, I actually think linebacker might be one of the deepest position groups Liberty has, at least going into training camp this season. I mean, obviously you got Joe Carter, who's a all-conference potential, probably the lead team in tackles again, maybe one of the top tackle guys in Conference USA, a first-team all-conference, likely potential there for him, kind of leading the team. On the defensive side at linebacker, at the Mike position. You also got a couple returners, Ethan Chris, Aiden Vaughn. Again, they transferred into Liberty a year ago. Were part of the 2 deep. And I think, having been in the system, they're kind of holding on to their spots there and may even be a starter type players going into the season. But you got some others that joined in the spring. Micah Pollard, Deuce Spurlock transfers from originally from Michigan, but one of them went also to Florida. But yeah, I mean, those are a couple names there to watch there. Darrell Farrar, App State transfer. I think he'll be expected. He just committed here a couple weeks ago. I think he'll be expected to come in and play immediately and maybe even challenge for a starting spot. So, and then I didn't even mention some of the younger guys, redshirt freshmen Liberty brought in a year ago that are continuing to develop and have a lot of talent there as well too. But I really like the look of this linebacker room, and I think they got a lot of potential and a lot of depth and maybe the top group on the defense. Defensive back wise, Liberty's also added a lot of pieces there, especially in the spring. You can see that's been a position of emphasis, whether safety or corner, whatever we're talking about. Liberty brings in a lot of guys that can kind of play both positions. They can play in the back of the defense at safety. They can play on the edge on the perimeter, I should say, not the edge, on the perimeter at corner, or they can play in the nickel spot, in the slot area, or maybe even that kind of spur position where Liberty can get, or star, I think they call it, a linebacker or safety hybrid. So we've got a lot of guys that can play multiple positions. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where all these pieces end up. You got a couple knowns, right? Brylan Green or Corey Jones at safety. They're kind of known, all conference potential. Brylan's even had All-American type of honors in his career. So those guys have been around for a while. They're veterans, they're leaders. Look for a lot out of them. Eldrick Griffin's another in the back end at safety that played last year, a transfer from a year ago. That's got some experience as well too. You think of a guy like a Christian Bodner, a guy that was injured last year, missed the last half of the season, but he's obviously very talented. Maybe a starter type guy as well too, whether that's at corner or safety. Marion Williams, another guy that started a lot at corner for Liberty. You'll hear his name a lot. You pencil him into a starting spot there. A couple other names I'll mention that are returners: Dexter Ricks, Elijah Hopkins, Eli August. These are all guys that expect them to fill in some spots there and some depth in the defensive backs positions. Then Liberty also brought in several transfers. You got a Jalen Rock who was here in the spring. Probably likely in a safety type role, but he can slide over to corner if needed. The Flames have also brought in a few transfers. A Jalen Whaley from Hampton. He's a guy that was an All-American as a freshman, HBCU All-American last year, started, and expect him to play a lot as well and compete for playing time, whether that's at a corner spot or a safety spot. Again, you can say that about a lot of these guys. Quavo Marshall, the transfer from Kentucky, didn't play as a freshman last year. Now he comes in, he's got 4 years of eligibility remaining. He's obviously talented. He's got some length at 6'4", so he's a guy that you could see factor in there as well too. But for them, we kind of got to wait and see, like, when they get here on campus, where do they fit in? Are they at corner? Are they at safety? And the staff may be having some of the same discussions right now, trying to figure out where these guys fit. So that's kind of the defensive back room. I feel good about the safety room. I think Liberty's got the pieces there, led by Jones and Green, and then also Eldrick Griffin as well too, Eli August. I mean, I hate to leave anybody out, but there's a lot of pieces there. Safety's good. Corner, I think they got the numbers as far as depth and pieces, and some returners and some incoming transfers, some new and fresh blood. So I think they got the potential, but again, you until you see them in a game, like, do you feel 100% confident that they're going to get the job done? I don't know if we can say that today, but I think Liberty's got the pieces, the talent, the numbers to be much improved at that corner spot. And again, when you got a defensive line that's a little bit of a question mark, I think the defensive line will end up being okay. It might take a few games to kind of figure it all out, who you got and where should they be and how much should they play and that sort of thing. But you need a strong secondary. So I think Liberty, their back seven, if you include the linebackers and their defensive backs, will kind of be the strength of the team, or should be the strength of the team going into training camp and to start the season. Defensive line, I think they'll figure it out. It just may take a little while, and it's hard to say today, before school's even let out here in the spring, exactly what you're going to get. Looking at the specialists quickly, Tyler Black, transfer from Wake Forest, comes in. He was a kickoff specialist there. You can easily go ahead and pencil him in there. I think he'll also be the favorite to win the job as a kicker. I'm sure Coach Chadwell, when we get a chance to speak to him, whenever that may be this summer or going into training camp, he'll say that's an open competition between Braden Beck and some of the others. But I think Black is probably the likely candidate. He's only taken 2 field goals in his college career, 1 for 2 at Wake Forest. So you can't really take much out of that, right? So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But the rest of your specialists should be fine. Max Morgan returns, your long snapper returns, your top returners, Julian Gray, Juju Gray, and Brylan Green also return. So I think returners should be fine. I know that was a lot. I said a lot. We're at 20 minutes looking at this clock here, but I said a lot. But I think that kind of gives you a good overview of kind of like where Liberty's at. We'll continue to break these positions down, break the team down as we get into it, into the summer, into the fall training camp, and we'll start to learn a lot more. Obviously, like I said, quarterback, running back will be positions that we'll definitely have to pay a lot of attention to who's getting all the reps with the ones and the twos, and how does that breakdown kind of work. Same thing with the offensive line. Like, you got some new pieces there. How do they fit in once practice starts up later in the summer? And then on the defense, where do some of those defensive backs slot in? That might be something we don't really fully find out until you get in a few games into the season. And then defensive line, obviously a position that we'll have to pay attention to. There's some unknowns there. There's some proven commodities, right? Like I talked about, but there's also some unknowns. So we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out. So hope this was beneficial for you guys, kind of get a breakdown of just kind of where Liberty's at today. There's a lot of moving parts when you go through that spring transfer portal, and you've been a few months removed from the season, so you might forget who's on the team, who's returning, who already left, who's coming in, and then you go through a couple weeks, 3-4 weeks of spring moves, and it's just a flurry of activity, and it's like, oh my goodness, what is going on? I know I needed a time to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what does Liberty have? What does this depth chart look like? And obviously the depth chart we've put out and even talked about here today is not 100% set in stone, and it's not from the coaching staff. There'll be changes made, obviously, and not 100% accurate by no means. Never when we do that, is it? But it kind of gives us a good understanding of where Liberty's at today, where there's some question marks, where there's some holes that need to be filled, where you need some younger guys, some unproven guys, whether that's through the portal or guys that have been on the team as depth pieces before, where they need to kind of step up into bigger roles. So obviously that's something we'll be monitoring once practices start, which again, a couple months away. So anyways, thank you guys for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, share this video, and go Flames.